Children often notice and see more than adults. Only adults dismiss toddlers or just think since he's little he doesn't understand anything. Parents do not listen to children and do not believe them for the most part. They say that at night a little man or a deep old man comes and takes away or carries away children in a sack, and those children are never seen again. The children disappeared most often right out of their own beds, and though they were searched for, there were few tears of sorrow. In those old days, children were not cared for much unless, of course, he was of blue blood. A child was an extra mouth to feed. The legend of the kidnapped children has come down to our days, obligatorily told to the little ones. If you don't obey and behave badly, Leshy will take you to himself and you will live with him, parents told their children, and they believed it. And sometimes, a parent would shout at the child, "Leshy will take you away!" And after a while, the child would indeed disappear. Gradually, the legend has grown with different details, some were true, where that is pure fiction. The truth was that in one region children disappear much more often than in other places. And those places are wooded, remote. Kids go missing every 9 years. No one's ever been found. Lera and her daughter Anfisa moved from the city to the village at the beginning of the summer. Valeria hoped that by the end of the summer her daughter would come to terms with her new place of residence and find friends. She was to start the new school year at the settlement school. They used to live in the city, in a large apartment, but after the divorce, Lera got nothing. She had savings, but they were enough only for a modest house in the province. She immediately found a job, and although many years led an idle lifestyle, she was not afraid of work. Anfisa was difficult. They fought almost every day. The girl was 15. She wanted beautiful clothes, expensive gadgets, and realized that now it will not be. The father completely eliminated from communication with his daughter, paid only court-ordered alimony. Anfisa loved her parents. Their divorce she took very painfully. And now, the village. The house is small, modest. There is a vegetable garden, a swing in the garden. All neglected and dull, overgrown yard and dirty windows. The whole view made one feel sad. It was like that on her first visit to the village. Lera had managed to make repairs and put everything in order in a short period of time. Anfisa kept silent, which her mother was glad about. Valeria went to work and Anfisa tried to get used to a different life. "Are you new?" a girl in a sundress with a braid asked. "Sort of," Anfisa grumbled. The girl was walking around the neighborhood and came upon an abandoned house. A few teenagers were sitting in the shade of the trees on makeshift chairs and a couch. Anfisa stopped nearby, hesitating to approach and thinking of a reason to meet them. She was a sociable girl, but this place was different and the people were different. "I'm Katya," the girl introduced herself. "And these are Sasha, Vitya, and Leva," Anfisa introduced herself. In a few minutes the group was chatting casually about all sorts of things. Anfisa was told the latest gossip, but she didn't understand half of it because she didn't know anyone yet. It turned out that they would all be in the same class. "Have you heard?" Katerina said conspiratorially, looking at Anfisa. "Children are disappearing again. Yesterday Mashka disappeared. She was in the 7th grade. What do you mean? Do you have a maniac here?" Anfisa smirked in disbelief. "Why a maniac? Every 9 years children disappear in the settlement and the neighboring village. It lasts for many decades. No one is ever found. Children disappear right from the house at night. Katya told me. My cousin's sister disappeared when I was little. A lot of brothers and sisters have disappeared here." "So? Didn't find anyone at all?" Anfisa asked seriously. "Of course they didn't. Once every 9 years a child goes missing for 7 days. 7 children. What about the police? Nothing. No trace. Kids just vaporize. One time they found a twig and some leaves. What a strange business you're in," Anfisa muttered. From that day, Anfisa spent a lot of time with her new friends. They walked around the neighborhood, went to the forest and to the river. Anfisa was taught to understand mushrooms and berries, to navigate in the forest. The girl was a pure city dweller before, and such science was given to her hard. But soon the forest was no longer frightening, and she learned to catch fish, even better than the boys. Naturally, she was almost never at home, and conflicts with her mother began. Lera scolded her daughter for coming home late and going out, for not helping around the house. Anfisa complained about her mother to her friends, and they sympathized with her, as they had the same situation. The teenagers were sitting on a bench in front of Katerina's house. The moon was already shining in the sky and the life of the village was dying down, falling asleep. The boys tried not to make noise and not to laugh loudly. They told scary stories and local legends. My grandmother used to say that children are taken away to the forest by the Leshy. In the olden days, they used to say that if a mother or father cursed a child and said, "Leshy will take you away," they would definitely take him away. And the Leshy takes away children whom parents thus cursed. They didn't realize it themselves, they said it in their hearts. Only the powers heard and executed. They say to be afraid of your desires, Leva told me with a serious look. From now on, these children live in the forest, in caves or deep holes in the roots of trees. The places there are remote and no human has ever set foot there. The Leshy guards his servants from people so they are not found. Over time, these children become evil forest spirits and often do mischief to people in the forest. You've made up a fairy tale story, Fisa laughed softly. I didn't make it up, my grandmother told it, and she will tell it again if you want. And Leshy is real, objected Leova. My parents and I once got lost in the forest. We wandered around in circles for 40 minutes. Here are the same bushes and trees, until my mother asked for help from Leshy. And in just a few minutes we came out to the car. My grandmother told me later that Leshy drove it. Almost everyone had similar stories told in ominous whispers. It was past midnight, but no one was in a hurry to go home. Go home quickly! The loud, shrill voice of Katerina's mother came quietly to the gate and shouted with all her might. The teenagers were frightened into silence and hurriedly dispersed. Luda, Katerina's mother, almost kicked her daughter into the yard, at the same time giving her a slap. What kind of girl are you? You'll bring in a hem. Who will need you? Or prostitutes? You're a disgrace to the whole neighborhood. No brains, you've only learned to wiggle your ass. Ludka used to yell as usual. She and her daughter often quarreled, and her mother got angry for no particular reason. God damn you, you fool. Katya pouted resentfully and went to her room, slamming the door loudly. Ludka was angry at her daughter, although in fact there was no reason for it, just a habit of getting angry at everything. The woman was used to living in a state of stress and dissatisfaction with life and others. Everything irritated her, from prices in the store to her own children. And after all, her sister had once had a tragedy, a missing child. The woman lay down and quickly fell asleep. When she opened her eyes, the sun was shining. The house was quiet, even too quiet. Luda got up and looking at the clock was very surprised. It was almost 10 o'clock. She had slept so soundly that she had not heard the alarm clock or the cattle yelling in anticipation of feeding. Strange. Maybe Katya was fussing about the household after the night's beating. Soon, Lyudmila realized that her daughter was not at home. She was neither in the house, nor in the vegetable garden, nor in the yard. The most interesting thing was that the girl's phone was still lying in the room, and except for her pajamas, all her clothes and shoes were in their places. At first, Lyudmila was angry with her daughter and started calling her friends, but no one had seen Katya. The news of Katerina's disappearance traveled around the village with the speed of a fire. Some whispered behind the petrified mother's back, saying that if she had yelled less at her daughter, the disaster would not have happened. Luda scolded and berated herself, hoping only that Katya had taken offense and run away. She tried to chase bad thoughts away from her. No matter how Luda scolded herself, she loved her daughter and worried about her. A crowd gathered outside Ludmila's house, including Lera. Lera was in solidarity with the others and thought that Katya had just run away from home. She'll run away and come back, said one of the women. The others didn't come back, said quietly another one. Have you forgotten what time it is? How much time is left? If you count with Katya, there's only one left, answered the woman indifferently. The police have been on duty under every bush all week. They've put up cameras, but it's no use. So Katya couldn't have run away. They would have noticed. And where do you think she went? Lera asked. Leshy took her away, the woman answered mundanely. She turned to Lera and looked at her point blank. Valeria was uncomfortable with her gaze. The stranger had blue eyes, clear as water, as if she were looking through a person. Anfisa waited for her mother in the courtyard, and when she appeared, she pounced on her with questions. Lera told her version of the escape. No, I don't believe it. It was fine. Fisa shook her head. What if the legend is true? What are you talking about? Asked her mother, in bewilderment. About Leshy, the girl retold the legend to her mother. Because think about it, Mom. No following and all the children, the day before the fight with their parents. What if it's true? Anfisa, I understand everything. Katya is your friend, but you have to accept reality and listen to fairy tales, Lera said sternly. Katya had a fight with her mother and ran away. Mom, she didn't run away. Didn't you hear anything? Fisa almost shouted, annoyed that her mother wasn't listening to her. About what? The chatter of village women? And now you're a village yourself. Fisa laughed. Shut up, Mom! I'm trying to talk to you normally, Anfisa shouted. When are you going to listen to me? If you're talking about Leshy, I don't believe it. So take you to the forest. Maybe you'll learn something in life," shouted Valeria, driven out of her mind. Word by word, mother and daughter fought like smoke. Anfisa slammed the bedroom door with such force that the crystal figurines on the shelf rattled pitifully. Lera shook her head and got down to dinner. Fisa didn't come out for dinner. Music was coming from her room. Lera already regretted the confrontation with her daughter, but she wasn't going to apologize. After watching TV, Lera went outside. It was past 10 in the evening. Lera noticed Luda wandering down the street. Lera was standing under a streetlight by the house, and as they approached, Lera looked at Ludmila and turned away. There was so much pain and grief in her gaze. "Take care of your daughter," Luda said. Valeria was awakened by a noise, something falling in the hallway. She wanted to go out at the noise, but her body wouldn't listen. She could neither scream nor move. From horror, the woman almost lost consciousness. What's going on? Had someone gotten into the house? Suddenly, a man's silhouette rose in the doorway. Lera could only see that it was a deep-set old man and dressed in strange clothes. After a moment, she became very dizzy and lost consciousness. The woman came to her senses at dawn, struggled to get out of bed and rushed to her daughter's bedroom. The bedroom was empty, and Fisa was gone. Lera didn't hesitate long and called the police and called Fisa's father. To Lera's surprise, Zhenya, the ex-husband, rushed over at once. The girl's phone, as well as her belongings, remained in their places. "Did you have a fight?" asked the ex-husband, Fisa's father. "As usual, a little quarrel," Lera answered. The girl couldn't run away, especially without a phone, clothes, and money. "You also remember about Leshy," Lera shouted in heart. "Come on, more details." Eugene shook out of his ex-wife the whole story, and the legend about Leshy, about the missing children for the last week, and in general about what has been going on here for many years. The man was connected with crime in the past, quickly put two and two together. Despite his solid life experience, Zhenya believed in mysticism and the supernatural. In the past, he had encountered inexplicable events that affected his life. "You're talking about a Leshy," Eugene said thoughtfully. "I need to check something, then we'll talk." Eugene went somewhere until the evening. All this time there were searches for children. They looked for them in rivers, forests, lakes. They checked roads, entrances and exits, abandoned buildings. A large search point was deployed at the edge of the forest. There, in addition to the police, worked and volunteers. Eugene returned, accompanied by the woman with the strange eyes. Luda and other parents of missing children from that week came with him. "Those who disappeared earlier can hardly be helped. Your children have a chance to return and only you can help them." A woman spoke. Her name was Zlata, and there was a lot of talk about her in the village. "In your heart you believe in the Leshey, but you don't want to admit it to yourself. Zlata, let's get to the subject. Why have you gathered us here?" There was a voice among the parents. "We can try to get the children back. You've never listened to me. Listen to me now. You're to blame for what happened. Saying, you go to Leshem or something like that, you cursed your child. The parental curse is one of the strongest. It's hard to break. Your curse was heard and your will was done, so you have only yourself to blame. Speak plainly," Luda asked. "You must ask for forgiveness. Ask for the mercy of Leshego and perhaps he will return your children. Only all the words must be sincere from the heart. As you curse the child, so return it." A disgruntled murmur rippled through the crowd. "Tell me where to go and what to do." A small group of people went towards the forest. Zlata led the way, followed by everyone else. On the way she explained what to do and how to do it. The main thing, from the heart, and don't be afraid. "The most terrible thing for you, the loss of a child, has already happened," Zlata said. Lera fell down without strength in front of a big and old oak tree. Tears flowed, leaving wet paths on her cheeks. The woman apologized to her daughter, asking her to come back to her. She did not notice someone approaching her. "You speak from the heart. You almost lost your child." "Ahem." Lera stared at the old man with the deep wrinkles on his face. His face was serious, but his eyes were aflame. "If I had your children, they would serve my family." "Are you the Leshy?" whispered Lera. "Grandpa Leshy," corrected her old man. "I'll give your children to you. But from now on, think what you say to your child. Besides me, there's enough evil to go around. I see you love your daughter very much. I'll let her go." The old man turned sharply and disappeared before the eyes of astonished Lera. At the edge of the clearing, the woman noticed a large wolf, which immediately disappeared into the bushes. "Mom!" Anfisa stood behind Lera, squinting and smiling embarrassedly. Anfisa and Katya and the other children were walking through the forest. When one by one they came out of the forest, there was silence in the search camp. Everyone stared at the children in silence. The children's parents followed them out of the forest. The women looked exhausted and tired, but their eyes shone. The mothers were really happy that their children were alive and had returned. Interestingly enough, all the parents at that moment were mysteriously communicating with Leshy. No one was afraid. Everything was taken for granted. The children remembered almost nothing, fortunately. One day, Lera asked Zalata why exactly once every 9 years this happens. She told her about the border of worlds, a thin line which at times can become an open door. And if in normal times, nothing terrible can and may not happen, then at this time will happen trouble. Lera didn't realize much, only that 9 years would pass quickly and one had to be careful. Officially, the case remained unsolved, there was no one to accuse, well, not to write about Leshy. Everything connected with mystical events was removed from the reports and protocols, while the case went to the archive. After all, it is a cycle. Not all parents watch their words and do not realize what trouble they can send their child into with their words. Anfisa went to school, life got better. Lera and her daughter got used to the provincial way of life and even had chickens. With Katya and the boys, Fisa continues to be friends. They still tell scary stories in the dark. None of them has ever told about what happened to the girls when they visited Leshey, but they both began to treat the forest and its inhabitants in a completely different way, with care and love. Both Katya and Fisa have learned the rules of behavior in the forest and follow them strictly. Subsequently, they both became ardent defenders of wildlife. Fisa's father comes to visit more and more often, and she and Lera stay up late talking and looking at the stars. Be afraid of your desires and watch your words. Author's note: there are many legends and stories about Leshy, each nation has its own. The functions of Leshy in different nations are similar. He is the king of the forest, the protector and patron of nature. But there are also a little frightening moments in the story of Leshem. In the olden days, it was believed that when a mother would say in her heart to a naughty child, "Leshy, take you away," her words could come true. The Leshy would take away, taking the children into the forest. Such children rarely returned home, nobody grieved about them. Sometimes parents went to the forest and apologized to the child and the Leshy, asking to return the child. Also, in order to return the missing child, a rite of tasting was held. That is, gifts were presented, and then the child was returned. By the way, according to various sources, legends about changelings come from this very story. They say that the child Leshy returned. The question is, what kind of child? Is it the same child? The forest is Leshy's domain, which he zealously guards. If Leshy drives, change your clothes inside out or ask him for mercy. He appears in different hypostasis. He can turn into an animal, a bird, or a gray-haired old man. Leshy can help a person in various cases and destroy. So, if you will be in the forest, treat nature and its protector, Leshem, with respect.